Niagara Falls is one of the most iconic and picturesque natural landmarks in both America and Canada. Contrary to popular belief, there is a group of 3 huge waterfalls that call this place home, and none of them are officially named Niagara Falls. This simply refers to the area as well as the tourist town on the Canada side. The largest of the 3 falls is Horseshoe Falls and is the one most commonly photographed and referenced. The border between the US state of New York and the Canadian province of Ontario uniquely threads the middle of this waterfall. The smaller American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls lie entirely within the United States and are still quite massive all things considered. Early in the month of June, I had the opportunity to visit Niagara Falls for my second ever time and first since creating this channel. Therefore, I wanted to answer the age-old question of whether the American or Canadian side is better. My hope is that this can help you decide which to visit, although I'd suggest splitting your time between both sides if you have the chance. The wait to get into Canada from the United States is never all that bad, and even the wait back into America has never exceeded 15 minutes on any of my visits. Naturally, like with any major border crossing outside of Europe, you will need a passport to hop between countries even if you're only planning to spend a couple hours in Canada. Although it'd be easy to spend a full day exploring both sides of Niagara Falls, and it is what I'd recommend, we actually started on the Canada side one evening before checking out the America side a few days later. This is because we were in the middle of a huge theme park focused road trip for my other channel Coaster Dash, and we had been at a small park in Pennsylvania called Waldemere the morning of our visit to the Canada side. Then we spent a day and a half at the country signature theme park Canada's Wonderland before driving down to the America side and indulging in an evening there. If you do plan on visiting both sides of the falls, it doesn't matter which you start with. I just had more curiosity in the Canada side since I had heard it's where you go for the best views of Horseshoe Falls. And right off the bat, I'll give a huge first point to Canada as I absolutely agree with the consensus. But to get to the main viewing areas, you'll have to park in the city of Niagara Falls, which is filled to the brim with quirky tourist attractions. There's parking garages and lots all over the place, but you'll also be charged a kidney, which is a downside. I've never personally been interested in attractions like these, except there had been a roller coaster built right in town since the last time I visited. This is located at the House of Frankenstein and is known for having been built atop a literal Burger King. It is one of the strangest locations ever for a coaster, so I knew I had to try it. But sure enough, it was atrociously bad and very rough, so unless you're a roller coaster enthusiast like myself and really want to add it to your list, I'd definitely give it a pass. On the plus side, we were just a short walk from the waterfall, so we started making our way over to the walkway along Niagara River. The first thing you'll see are the 2 falls on the American side, which already look very large from this perspective. For those of you who don't know how to differentiate the two, the little 56-foot wide fall to the right is Bridal Veil. The bulk of the falling water, spanning 850 feet across, is American Falls. The height of these two are roughly 185 feet tall, including an 80-foot vertical drop followed by water descending talus boulders, which is more than 100 feet lower. I find that the most impressive views of the American Falls naturally are on the America side, so we'll talk about them more later on in the video. From here you can hook a right and walk for about a mile before reaching the top of Horseshoe Falls, but don't forget to take in all of the different vantages on the way. Literally every time I stopped off to admire these falls, I was enamored. The height of 187 feet is impressive, but really it's the width and the shape spanning 2,500 feet across that makes this one of the most beautiful waterfalls on the continent. Part of me also wants to call BS that the height is just 187 feet. I've seen waterfalls like this that appear much more grand due to their width, but I still find it hard to believe. When you're standing next to it, it is absolutely enormous, and the volume of water flowing off generates a very loud noise. Speaking of which, Horseshoe Falls is one of the most powerful waterfalls in the world, and the most powerful in North America by flow rate. More than 5.9 million cubic feet of water flow off the falls every minute, which is just so ridiculous. On a sunny day, you'll often see rainbows form next to the base, which was another treat that made this waterfall a joy to film and take pictures of. Sadly, there's not much more to do on the Canada side as it relates to the waterfalls. Moving on to the America side, it was prevalent that there was far more protected land and less development. This comes in the form of Niagara Falls State Park, which is a much more organized setup consisting of multiple parking lots with overlooks and various hiking trails. I appreciate how once you pay your parking fee, which was already quite a bit cheaper than the Canada side at around $10 US, you'll be free to park in any of the lots. The 2 main ones are A, on the mainland where you go for Prospect Point looking out at the American Falls. P.S. This is also where you go if you'd like to partake in a Maid of the Mist boat ride to the base of Horseshoe Falls. And B, on Goat Island where we spent the most amount of time in by far. This is where you have the best view of Horseshoe Falls from the America side and can try something called Cave of the Winds, which we'll discuss later, but it is a must-do. We began at the latter for Terrapin Point, which is only a decent view at best relative to the Horseshoe Falls overlooks on the Canada side. The biggest flaw with it is the onslaught of mist coming off the falls. Normally I enjoy stuff like this, but because of how strong these falls are, you are basically forced into flinching. As a result, we didn't spend a whole lot of time here before walking over to Cave of the Winds to check out something that had been on my bucket list for a long time. Essentially, this allows you to walk amongst the base of both of the American Falls on a beautifully designed boardwalk trail to a series of redwood decks and platforms. To get here, you're put in an elevator that takes you down to the level of the Niagara River. Then you walk through this long man-made tunnel where you're given a poncho on the other side. While not mandated, trust me, you'll absolutely have wished you had one on. There are few instances where I've been hit with more water in my life, as the sheer amount of mist flying off these waterfalls is absurd. Even with a poncho, parts of my clothes were soaking wet afterwards, but in the moment it's the last thing you're thinking about because this is an amazing experience. There are so many areas to walk around, and many of the observation decks were meticulously positioned in such a way to ensure that you aren't being devoured by the falls. So you're able to get both clear views in places where you can take pictures, and it's also where I took most of my video shots. But likewise, you have the opportunity to get yourself drenched and have some fun, which I'd highly recommend because it legitimately feels like you're inside of a cyclone or something. Without hesitation, Cave of the Winds is my favorite attraction anywhere in Niagara Falls for its uniqueness and interactivity with the waterfalls. Now once we made our way back up to the car, we had one final stop to make at Parking Lot A back on the mainland. This was by far the busier of the two, which is ironic because there's quite a bit less to do that isn't an upcharge. My guess is the tourists that come here aren't aware of where they should go because this is the first parking lot you see. Though in all fairness, the overlook here of American Falls is magnificent. It's the best viewpoint of this particular waterfall as you look out at all of the water flying off the edge. There's also a solid backdrop of Horseshoe Falls as the cherry on top. And the positioning of this observation area has very little mist flying into it, so you don't need to worry about not being able to see anything while visiting. Still, we didn't spend too much time here, since there wasn't as much room to walk around and view the falls compared to other locations at Niagara Falls. So to just kind of wrap things up, let's compare the America and Canada sides once and for all. As I mentioned before, Horseshoe Falls is the biggest draw, and there's no doubt that the best view of it can be found in Canada. The view of American Falls and Bridalveil Falls aren't half bad from there either, though there's no way to get anywhere close to them as you have a whole river separating it. While the views of Horseshoe Falls from the United States are just alright, it is where you'll want to go to see American Falls and Bridalveil Falls as close as possible. Plus, Cave of the Winds takes you the closest to any of the falls that you can possibly get, and that experience far exceeded anything else I did here. Therefore, contrary to popular belief, I'd take the America side just over the Canada side. I also appreciate the aforementioned lack of development on this side compared to the other. It allows you to breathe and escape the largest crowds, which are almost always on the Canada side. Without Cave of the Winds, the answer is a lot more difficult to answer, but still I do believe I'd slightly prefer America by a hair. So if you could only visit one side, that's my vote. Unless you already have a passport, it's not worth putting in all the extra effort and planning to venture into Canada. That said, for those who do have a passport, I'd suggest going to both and seeing for yourself which side is more impressive. I'd love to hear in the comments what you lean towards, America or Canada, and why. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Travel Dash for more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.